In today's modern world, one problem that we face is the emissions of greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases are gases that trap heat in the atmosphere. These include carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and fluorinated gases. These gases are released through the burning of fossil fuels and agriculture. All of these emissions are affecting the ocean. The ocean absorbs about a quarter of all the CO2 we release into the atmosphere every single year. So as the CO2 levels increase, so do the levels in the ocean. As the ocean absorbs more CO2, the pH of the ocean decreases. This changes the composition of the seawater, causing organisms living in the water to be affected. This video will discuss an organism that is affected by the CO2 emissions being absorbed into the water, causing ocean acidification. It will also discuss a possible resource that could be used to decrease CO2 emissions and the ocean acidification it causes.
The leopard seal is the second largest seal in the world. They are found in the frozen waters of Antarctica. However, they can be found off the coast of South America, South Africa, New Zealand, and along the southern coast of Australia. Leopard seals are the dominant predator in their environment, with the exception of human hunters and the occasional desperate shark or orca. Leopard seals eat krill and plankton, but as they get larger, they prefer larger prey such as penguins, other seals, fish, and squid. Leopard seals use their hind limbs to propel themselves through the water. The front limbs are used for agility, steering the seal through the water. Leopard seals are solitary as they are extremely aggressive. Leopard seals will only group up during the mating season. Leopard seals can grow to 11 feet and weigh 1,300 pounds. Females are smaller than males but are still larger than most seals. Unlike most species of seals, leopard seals are very solitary animals. Leopard seals are also fast on land, allowing them to hunt in both land and water. Male leopard seals reach sexual maturity between ages 6 to 7 and females between 3 to 7. Mating season lasts from November to February. Males are thought to be serially polygynous. Gestation lasts around 11 months, but implantation appears to be delayed for about 2 months. Most births occur in October and November. The female gives birth to a single pup weighing about 30 kilograms and about 1.6 meters long and nurses for about a month. Males do not seem to participate in parental care. The lifespan of a leopard seal is about 26 years.
Here is the food web of Antarctica in which the leopard seal lives in. The leopard seal is a tertiary consumer, meaning it is the top predator in its environment, other than the exception of the desperate whale or human hunters. A producer in this environment is phytoplankton. A primary consumer is krill or zooplankton. These animals eat the phytoplankton. A secondary consumer would be penguin, fish, crab-adder seals, or squid. The tertiary consumer would be leopard seals, elephant seals, and whales. Leopard seals predominantly eat penguins and fish. Younger leopard seals will eat krill or other seals. A decomposer in this environment are worms, fungus, and bacteria. Leopard seals are heterotrophs and are the top predators of their environment. One organism affected by ocean acidification is krill. However, the krill population is only affected by large amounts of CO2 being absorbed into the ocean. The exact amount is about 2,000 ATMs. This is when krill embryos begin to stop developing and do not make it past the gastrulation period and no larvae hatch. The Antarctic is most prone to ocean acidification as carbon dioxide is best absorbed by cold Arctic waters. This means that Antarctica will be absorbing large amounts of CO2, meaning the krill will be affected. Krill is a keystone species of the Antarctic ecosystem. If they cannot breed due to the acidification, the entire Antarctic food chain will collapse. Krill are a staple part of young leopard seal diets. If the young leopard seals are not getting food, they will die off. This means the leopard seal population will take a major hit as a main source of food is being taken away. But krill are not the only food source of leopard seals. They are also the food source of fish, birds, other seals, penguins, and squid. These are all parts of a leopard seal's diet, so if the krill are gone, all animals and the leopard seal will soon fall.
Ocean acidification affects leopard seals through their diet. So it affects phytoplankton, which doesn't directly involve leopard seals, but it does indirectly involve it. So with the increase in acidification in the ocean, that it actually lowers the amount of iron that is available in the ocean. This causes problems because it has been shown that it decreases the amount of photosynthesis that goes on in the ocean. This is bad because the krill that eat the phytoplankton, there will be less of the phytoplankton, so the krill have less food to eat. This affects the krill population, which then affects the leopard seal because the krill is one of its main sources of food, so it does affect the leopard seal.
At first, scientists believed that fish were not affected by the carbon dioxide in the ocean. However, this has changed. At around 1,000 ATMs, half of what affects krill, fish larvae survival rates dropped to about 75%. The larvae showed immense signs of tissue damage and necrosis. Organs were also severely damaged and shut down, causing more fish larvae to die off. The length of the fish also declined by 18%. All of these factors could affect the leopard seal population. Fish are another important animal in the Antarctic ecosystem. Penguins and seals feed off of them, which are both parts of a leopard seal's diet. If the fish larvae are dying off or growing to be shorter, there would not be a substantial amount of large fish to support all of the animals in the Antarctic waters. Young leopard seals would not have a source of food and die off. With the amount of other seals and penguins dying off from a lack of fish, the adult leopard seals will soon follow, as their main sources of prey are now in short supply as well. With fish gone, the food web will continue to collapse. Fish larvae have not yet fully developed the gills that filter the water for CO2 and regulate pH. This makes them very vulnerable to the ocean's acidification early on. As CO2 in the water increases, the amount of mortalities and the severity of the tissue and organ damage increases. This means that the fish larvae will not grow up in order to reproduce, growing more fish, meaning that leopard seals will die off with a shorter supply of food.
So in conclusion, the increase in CO2 emissions in the atmosphere has affected the leopard seal. It has caused acidification in the ocean. This affects the food that the leopard seal eats. This is a problem because it affects the species itself, which then causes problems throughout the rest of the ecosystem. One way to solve this is to use nuclear energy.
Nuclear energy is the use of neutrons to break the atomic bonds in atoms, causing a chain reaction of breaking atoms. This release energy is used to heat up water, which spins turbines connected to a generator, creating electricity.
The advantages of nuclear energy are that it has low greenhouse gas emissions, it's powerful and efficient, and it's reliable. Greenhouse gases have reduced due to the new popularity of nuclear power. Nuclear energy does not release any gases except for water vapor, making it very clean. 440 nuclear reactors are found around the world, and there are 65 new plants being constructed. Nuclear power plants are very powerful. More countries are beginning to realize this. There are more investments in nuclear power plants as they are very efficient in producing electricity. Nuclear power generates about 380 million watts a year right now, and that number could improve with more plants. Unlike solar power or wind power, nuclear power does not rely on nature to do its job. Nuclear energy can be produced anytime, anywhere. They produce power 24/7 and are only shut down for maintenance. From a graph showing from the World Nuclear Association showing greenhouse gas emissions, nuclear energy is at the very bottom along with hydroelectric and wind power. More advantages of using nuclear power are that it has a low cost supply and easy transportation. While it is really expensive to construct a nuclear power plant, the cost to run one is relatively cheap. It costs $9 billion to construct the power plant. Uranium is very cheap and is the only necessary fuel source required for nuclear energy. Uranium costs $20 per pound, also a small amount of uranium is required, making the cost even cheaper. Nuclear energy has a continuous supply of energy and produces a lot of clean, reliable energy. Nuclear energy is expected to last 100 years, while coal and oil are expected to run out soon. Unlike other forms of energy, nuclear energy requires very small amounts of raw material. The only raw material is the uranium, and 28 grams of uranium produces more energy than 100 metric tons of coal. Because of this, less transportation is required to move the uranium to the power plant. The graph showing the costs on average, of different types of sources show that nuclear energy is among one of the cheapest energy sources out there and is more reliable than most of the other sources.
While there are advantages towards nuclear energy, there are also disadvantages. One disadvantage is nuclear energy is very expensive. A nuclear power plant costs about $9 billion. If not used properly, the cost of this power plant can also greatly skyrocket. Also, nuclear energy is not commonly used, so companies must increase the cost of their electricity, causing the companies to be used less and putting them further in debt. This graph here shows the popularity of nuclear energy. In 2005, nuclear energy was very popular in France, Germany, India, Indonesia, Japan, Mexico, Russia, and the US. However, 6 years later, in these countries, it is shown that nuclear energy has actually declined. Another disadvantage of nuclear energy, there are immense amounts of anti-nuclear groups in the public. This would withhold production of the power plants as the public does not support them. Finally, nuclear reactors may reduce the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, but there are significant health and environment issues that could occur. If a reactor goes into meltdown, large amounts of radiation could be released. This radiation can cause an increase in genetic mutations that are harmful to animals and plants. Seeds are weakened by the radioactivity, meaning that plants will not be able to grow. High doses of radiation can be devastating to the environment. Plants are destroyed, as seen with the Chernobyl incident. The Chernobyl incident was when a nuclear power plant went into nuclear meltdown in Ukraine. The radioactivity traveled all across Europe. Pine trees were devastated by the radiation, and forests were destroyed. Radiation can also cause atoms to lose electrons, eventually causing the atom to become dead. The effects of radiation on human beings depends on how much radiation the human has been absorbed to. The effects are both immediate and long-term. Radiation can cause hair loss. This is an example of a short-term example. Short-term examples usually mean humans were absorbed to less radiation. An example of long-term radiation would be cancer or leukemia. This is caused when a human experiences long-term or large amounts of radiation. Radiation can also cause death of nerve cells, heart cells, reproductive cells, thyroids, skin cells, intestinal cells, and blood cells. All of these cells are usually destroyed when the human is exposed to large amounts of radiation. While nuclear energy does not produce any byproduct waste, it does produce radioactive waste. By the end of 2011, nuclear reactors produced about 67,000 metric tons of radioactive waste. This number increases about 2,000 metric tons every year. This would be a problem as the waste of nuclear energy is mostly plutonium. Plutonium is used to create nuclear weapons. So the waste that nuclear energy is producing could be used in weapons that could destroy many people. Right now, the waste is being stored under the Yucca Mountain in Nevada. However, if these tanks fill up, it could become unsafe.
Nuclear energy is achieved through nuclear fission. Nuclear fission is when a neutron is absorbed into an atom, causing the atomic bond to split and releasing more neutrons, which go on to split more atoms. The atoms used in nuclear fission are uranium atoms. The most common form of uranium is U-308. Uranium is a large atom, so the atomic bonds are weak and easier to break. Also, it's highly radioactive. Nuclear fission occurs within control rods inside the reactor. These control rods contain uranium pellets that undergo nuclear fission. The energy released from nuclear fission heats the water to about 520 degrees Fahrenheit. The heated water exits the reactor as steam, which then turns the turbine. The turbine is connected to the generator, which then generates electricity for whatever it is powering.
Nuclear fission is when a neutron is absorbed into an atom, causing the atom atomic bonds to split and releasing more neutrons, which go on to split more atoms. The initial neutron causes a chain reaction. The atom used in nuclear fission are uranium atoms. The most common form of uranium is U-308. This is the equation of nuclear fission. Here, you can see that the uranium is broken down. When the neutron goes into the uranium atom and splits, the neutrons are released, causing the uranium atom to become barium and krypton. These neutrons continue to go into more uranium atoms and cause more of them to split, causing more barium and more kryptons.
Based on the benefits and drawbacks of nuclear energy, we believe it is a viable energy source that can greatly reduce the amount of greenhouse gas emissions. While nuclear energy is not very popular, expensive, and could cause severe health and environmental issues, nuclear energy has one of the lowest CO2 emission rates. Also, less uranium is required to run a plant, and it produces as much energy as billions of pounds of coal. It is more reliable and good supply and is much easier to transport. All in all, nuclear energy would be the perfect energy source of the future to reduce greenhouse gas emissions.